Diablo 2 has 5 acts, each of those acts has a boss, and there are 3 difficulties, namely Normal, Nightmare and Hell, which makes it so that there are 15 bosses in total if you go all the way through. I'm going through every single one of those, and for every boss I am switching skills. So let's take a completely random example and say I take Charged Bolt to beat Andariel. That means I can't use it for Duriel anymore, etc, etc. The journey starts off in Act 1 normal, with ignoring that I've had to beat 3 Fallen to their deaths to unlock my first skill point. I could of course have gone for Fireball first, cause that is the skill you start with. However, that would mess up my entire routing. Charged Bolt is the first skill of the lightning skill tree, and it throws around charged bolts of lightning. If you're thinking to yourself, man that is complicated, don't worry. Every skill in this game has a very on the nose name with very little wiggle room to make sure everybody gets what is going on. The first problem I encounter is Rakanishu. He is also throwing around charge bolts thanks to the lightning enchanted modifier he always has. When a monster is enchanted with a specific type like fire, ice or in this case lightning, they get 75% increased resistance to that specific type, meaning that while I can't resist his bolts, he can basically ignore mine. This does not please me in the slightest, but can't be helped for now, so I just brave Sir Robin it and move on. My journey brings me to the Tower Cellar level 1. In here I randomly decide to pick up the throwing potions, not because I want to, but I will need them in the future. I hadn't mentioned it yet, but this is a shared stash run. So while I'm starting off with the Sorceress, I am working my way through every class in the game all in a row. So when all of this is said and done, I will have beaten 105 act bosses with 105 different skills. A big part of rooting all of this was how I was supposed to spend my skill points. Now, you would think that I can just max out my skill and then move on to the next one. However, you only get a skill reset when you clear the Den of Evil, which means you get 1 per difficulty. So I needed to find a way to get into all the skills I needed. My character selection was pretty loosey-goosey except for the first one. If there is farming to be done, the girl in the green dress is the golden go-to standard for a reason. I don't have access to it yet, so I have to farm the Countess the old-fashioned walking way. The runes I need are a Ral, a Tyr, and a Tal and Et. With their powers combined, they make the rune word Stealth, which is one of the best armors in the game thanks to its 25% faster cast rate, which is very rare to find on armors. The other stats are nice too, but the cast rate is what puts it over the top. With the farming done, I make my way to the barracks for the Herodric Malus that will allow me to imbue an item later on. Magic Find is the strongest ability in the game, cause some early game Magic Find will increase the quality of your gear like a snowball going down a hill. So when I found a unique ring, that turned out to be a Nagel ring with 28% Magic Find on a run that is going to involve 7 different characters and 105 acts. I knew I was going to have a good time. The first boss fight of the run is Andariel in the Catacombs level 4. She is just the first boss of the game, so it isn't too big of a deal yet, and I definitely didn't die even once. After making my way back for the killing blow, Act 1 is done and we are done with Charge Bolt. For Act 2 I'm using Lightning, a straight line of lightning that goes through enemies. It's a very strong skill, however there is one little problem. The damage range is ridiculous. It has excellent high-end damage, but the minimum will always deal 1, so sometimes you just stand around for a while shooting before you get a high roll. In the meanwhile, I've picked up the Herodric Cube and made it to level 19, which, due to some technical blah blah, is the first chance you have at rolling 20% faster run walk on boots with your imbue. I know they are going to be bad when instead of giving them to me, Chassis just tosses them on the ground like the filth they are. And while there is some magic find on them, these boots are nothing to write home about. Back in the not so lost city, cause I'm right there after taking a left from the far oasis, some old man tries to give me a hug. That seems gross, so I electrocute him instead. And as my reward I get the most important skill in the entire game. Teleport. I can explain what it does. But just like every other skill in this game, it does exactly what it's called. It teleports you around and is so broken I usually ban it from my sorceress runs. Cause I didn't die earlier, the first dangerous moment of the run happens in the Claw Viper Temple level 2. This is where Fangskin resides. Just like Rakanishu, he is lightning enchanted, meaning that he has fantastic resistance to what I'm trying to do. The feeling isn't mutual, so he almost slaps me into paste with just a single hit. But with some brave running around, the salamander is defeated. I didn't choose lightning by accident for Act 2. An attack that goes straight forward and penetrates everything is perfect for the small hallways and corridors of the Maggot Lair, allowing me to make my way through them no problem and grab the Staff of Kings. The Arcane Sanctuary is yet another area that is filled to the brim with monsters while being very small, so I slowly and surely, but mostly slowly walk through it while taking my time and defeating every monster as I go through. For the people doing their own magic finding right now, I hope you find what you need, just focus on that. Don't bother looking at the screen, it's all happening exactly as I'm telling it. I would never gaslight you, you're special. In preparation for the next boss fight, I drink myself into a Lemist IO, which for people who have touched grass before makes the rune word delirium, and enter Talrasha's chamber, where the mighty Duriel, slayer of loading screens, is waiting for me. The fight starts with him having a one-on-one with my mercenary, who is able to tank the giant demon for quite a while thanks to me forcing him to mainline rejuvenation potions like it's his last day on Earth. But what do you know, it was his last day on Earth. With the whole room just to ourselves, Duriel and me amp up the shock factor until he groans a final time and hits the floor for an eternal rest well deserved. Because Act 3 is filled with lots of big monster groups, I decided to use a skill with some serious area of effect in the form of Nova. This iconic skill makes my damage come full circle, making it so that I don't have to aim at all the little flayers running around everywhere and instead can just fire at will and the problems will solve themselves. One of the biggest hurdles in this run is making sure my skills are high enough level to deal enough damage to even deal with the enemies. If I don't make sure I get my levels, I'll end up having to clear the final acts with something like a level 1 blizzard, which I very much want to avoid at all costs. So in the Ruined Temple I decide to level up to 25 to unlock some more skill points. Quest wise, I also picked up Lam Esen's Dome and the Jade figurine in here. These will respectively get me 5 stats and 20 health. With my level goal reached, it is time to head back into the jungle for the Gitbin quest. It's an optional quest, but as its reward you get a random rare ring from Ormus. And for the first of many rare rings during this run, I get the Entropy Loop, which has 1 life, 4 mana, 11 fire resist and half freeze duration. Not the greatest ring I've ever seen, but we are in Act 3 normal, can't expect the world. You don't have to do the quests in any specific order as long as you complete the entire grocery list. So I pick up the brain and head back all the way into the spider cavern to pick up the eye as well, completing the Act 3 forest and allowing me to advance once more. The sewers fly by fast, netting me the heart, meaning there is only one piece left. Gear 4 is the flail, which is guarded by the council in Travancore. With half the council coming out swinging right from the gate, Azrael quickly takes a Kimbo slice and I end up forced to lure out the council, because I'm not in college anymore so I can't take all of them at the same time. It takes a bunch of Novas to power through them healing each other, but after a fast and furious battle my prize drops to the floor, allowing me entrance to the Mephisto fight, which I can't deny. Did not go very well. Nova is intended to do crowd control with, but Mephisto has no friends until he drops great loot, meaning that most of my damage is just wasted on thin air. The fight devolved into me pretending I'm good at dodging his much stronger than mine charge bolt and lightning, cause those are very frightening. I don't do a good enough job of it, so I take a planned RNG manipulation tactic before finally being able to take the demon down. Act 3 normal and already struggling and dying. I'm sure that's not a sign of things to come at all. The set mask he dropped is Cathan's Visage, which has 20 mana and 25 cold resist. A massive upgrade cause I was using a gemmed cap with 2 chipped sapphires in it for 20 mana. I'll take the 25% cold resist at the price of making my character hideous. My next skill is Chain Lightning, which is the same as lightning but instead it ricochets of monsters, which in theory should be very strong if the skill wasn't at level 3 and dealing 1 to 106 damage, averaging to 53 damage per cast of 11 mana. Dear viewer, I'm not gonna lie, we are getting into melee levels of damage sadness here and I am starting to get worried. We need more damage on this skill and we need it right now. The best way to upgrade my damage is by sending Isual to hell, where we are currently, so I'm sending him to nowhere? Home? Who knows? The fight is going to take forever, so I'm just going to talk about some other stuff while I'm here. First off, you can see on my skills that I am playing on controller. I'm using a Gameser G7 Pro and am affiliated with them. You can find a link for that in the description down below. The second thing is to ask if you have subscribed yet. I know it's annoying that people keep asking for this every single time, but you subscribing is literally the difference between me being able to make these videos for your entertainment and death by starvation. I also have memberships available and a Patreon. Links to all of them can be found in the video description, as well as a list of the music I used in this video. With the obligatory shilling done, I finally made it through the Isual fight. As a reward for doing something in hours that Tyrael himself could have done in seconds, I get the 2 skill points. But hey, as long as you have the spare skill points to throw away, you might as well make someone else do your dirty work. The 2 extra skill points take chain lightning from dogshit to okay-ish and allow me to make my way towards the Chaos Sanctuary, where I can finally show why I wanted to go lightning first in normal instead of fire. The Grand Vizier of Chaos is fire immune, and sure, I could do the speedrun strat of letting Azrael deal with the problem, but that would get me in trouble later on in the run, cause the fire skills are much better in the late game on a no budget character than the lightning skills are. By the time you reach Hell, the lightning skills are basically irrelevant, which is why I wanted to use them first. So I decided to kill 2 stones with 1 bird by rotating around the fire immunity and getting the weakest skill tree out of the way first. Using every skill like this lets you see all sorts of things you otherwise never would. I had never used chain lightning before, and I came to learn that one very cool thing you can do with it is just taking a giant dump on the Infector of Souls from a distance, which was very satisfying to me, and I can highly recommend trying it for yourself. The Diablo fight does instill me with insecurity that I will never admit in public. His lightning is so much bigger than mine and it makes me sad. I would claim that it's all about how you use it, but his does half lightning, half physical and half self-confidence damage. Even little sparks of it deal massive damage, while mine are doing nothing more than the slightest of chips to his life total. If anyone was wondering why lightning skills aren't good against bosses, if the Nova against Mephisto didn't make it very clear, I hope this does, cause I don't have a better way of showing it off. The bosses all have massive lightning resistance and big health pools, making life miserable if you don't get into a second skill tree. So while I'm sure the problem could be solved on a regular run by combining chain lightning with one of the cold or fire skills, I can't do that here cause that would cost me both of the skills. I keep shooting at the boss and about a gazillion chain lightnings later, the demon finally meets his demise. He leaves behind a unique crown. This is the Undead crown. It has necromancer skills, which is all pretty cute. But the big thing here is that it's a helm with 50% racism to the undead, 5 life leech, 50% poison resist and half freeze duration. Ironically, making this very obviously necromancer intended helm a great melee helm for a mercenary. With Act 4 done, I am out of lightning skills that deal damage, cause while you can comment about telekinesis, there is no way I am doing an entire act with it when the sorceress has plenty of skills to work with. Which means it is time to get some new skills going. I'm obviously grabbing teleport again, but the rest of my skills are going into the fire tree for Inferno, Blaze and Firewall. They all have warmth as a synergy, so I decided to put a few points into that as well. I figured that I might as well start with the weakest skill while I'm still in normal, so I decide to go Inferno for the final act of normal. Inferno has you throwing out a giant flame in front of you. One might even say you're throwing out an Inferno. I know, the naming conventions in Diablo 2 are wild. It's a good thing I decided to start with this cause it helped me fight Shank to an honorable draw before remembering that all the way back in Act 1 I got myself a Tear and a Ral rune, allowing me to make the Leaf rune word. Despite having to make this in a two-handed staff, it's still an amazing weapon for what I am trying to do here, thanks to its +3 to fire skills and +3 Inferno. Those stack in the way you want them to, netting me a fantastic +6 to Inferno. With the massive buff, I am able to duel it out with the Demon Rascal to decide who will be the one allowed to use this skill. There can be only one after all. Having beaten up someone much smaller than me, my confidence has recovered and I decide that I now want some burly men in my life. My quest leads me to the Frigid Highlands, where I burn down the doors and save the barbarians. Act 5 is all about saving things. Save the village, save the barbs and finally, saving Anya. She is in the frozen river guarded by Frozenstein. He doesn't have any fire resistance, so I make my way through him and his gooners and save the princess. The reward for this is the Scroll of Resistance, granting me 10% resist all for the rest of this sorceress existence. With everybody safe and sound in Harrogath, it is time to go and round out the first difficulty. There are a few obstacles in the way though, with the first being the Ancients. Korlik, Madauk and Talik await at the Ariad summit. The best way to fight them normally is to split them up, but because Inferno doesn't have any area of effect damage, instead being a big beam that you control, it means that instead of the usual splitting them up, the strategy now becomes to keep them as close together as possible to hit all three at the same time. There is a big problem with this. Inferno has a build-up before it starts actually firing, meaning that I need to teleport to just the right distance to not only have them not split up, but also to have enough time to actually start the attack and deal some damage. This is finicky at the best of days when you're properly invested into the skill and its synergies, when you're spreading yourself as thin as possible and only have a drip to work with instead of a big Inferno. This becomes a problem. I do get into the groove of things and the fight ends up with me chipping away slowly at them while balancing my survival at all times by teleporting at just the right time. After a couple minutes of this, the last of the 3 falls and the fight ends, with me as the victor. The game truly catches up with me in the Throne of Destruction. I go for the Inferno against some Death Lords, but they once again prove why they aren't called Cuddle Lords when they stun lock and kill me so fast I could barely even get out of the attack animation. Getting my body back did not go as smooth as I had hoped. Just millimeters from my take home order corpse, they add a second one to this Tomb of the Mutilated. On my third attempt I finally managed to pick up my corpse from the Crypt of Rays and clear the bulls from their parade. Despite trying to root around it, I couldn't figure out a way to dodge all of them in the early game. So Azrael is the one that has to take care of Colenso the Annihilator, cause I couldn't set his world on fire due to his fire immunity. The rest of the Bale waves were no problem if you ignore the part where I died to Bartuk the Bloody a few times, cause I don't have any lightning resistance, which we are doing. I'm guessing a lot people know this, but for those who haven't spent the last 25 years playing this game, monster packs work by having a leash, which means that minions can't get too far away from the boss of their pack. The leash can break with distance, but as long as it doesn't, you get situations like this where the Venom Lords are just running around a bunch while taking fire, cause they are programmed to not go out of the boss's radius. If this looks like it's a free win, that would be because it is. Bale decided that today was a good day to burn to a crisp, so I obliged, clearing out the first of the 21 playthroughs I have to do to get all of this done. His drops show how much a little bit of magic find can cascade. The chain gloves are 27% chance cards, which just compound onto the magic find we already had from our Nagel ring. The unique Rondel is a dagger with ignore targets defense, which is the perfect weapon for what I will need to do much later on in the run. All kidding aside though, 65 to 165 is not bad damage at all for a level 36 dagger. All in all, a very underrated weapon. You could poison a person with that for sure. Deciding that a draw wasn't good enough for my ego, I decide to let my ID have its way and Freudian slipshank to death while feeding into the super ego as well. I am a man of culture after all. Having infernoed my way through the final act of normal, it is now time to blaze into Nightmare. Blaze as a skill has you leaving a path of fire behind wherever you walk, burning everything that goes through it. It's one of my favorite skills to play with cause of the natural increased run speed it gives to your sorceress. Really cool people even ban teleport when doing a blaze run for all the glory. One thing you need to be careful of when using Blaze is that it makes enemies emit an absolutely stupid amount of bolts when they are lightning enchanted. I'm sure there is a technical reason for this happening and that it makes a ton of sense once you understand how the game works. For my purposes though, it is just dangerous and I don't want anything to do with it. It is a perfect opportunity to get back at Rakanishu though, which is exactly what I end up doing. While it isn't worth it to save Cain in normal, because you only get a magic ring as a reward. In Nightmare and Hell, you get a rare ring rewarded, which suddenly makes Cain's amazing personality worth it to have Three-Head Woodfist chase you around the Dark Wood in search of the Scroll of Inifus. Having used the scroll to get into Tristram, I blaze my way through and save everybody's favorite Gimp before heading to Akara for the next rare ring. Grimhold has 83 attack rating, 3 mana leech and 7 lightning resist, which could be interesting for a melee character, but this doesn't cut it for us. Andariel is weak to fire, so while Bors is trying to keep her out of the fire with everything he has, feminism prevails as it should and she gets to chase me. Look, that she's chasing me into a giant wall of fire while she is basically made out of gas, which, while not quite what I would have done, is her decision to make and I respect her freedom to do so. Having beaten Andariel, I figured it was time to switch skills. However, I had forgotten to get the runes I was needing from the Countess, so I decided to just go and get them with the next skill, which means that I spent some time using a firewall for the Countess, netting me a bunch of runes I am going to need throughout the run in the process. With that done, I head back into normal to buy a 2-socket cap to make the lore rune word in. I just can't say no to a helm that has +1 to skills, 30 of the very much needed lightning resist and 7 damage reduction. Deciding that I want to get my gear on even more. It is time to head into the Moo Moo farm to farm for a sword. Why, you ask? Well, because the amount of sockets an item gets from Larzuk is dependent on the item level it has, and the cow level is just the most consistent way of making sure you are using the correct base and not just wasting a socket quest. A few minutes in a broadsword drops, which will get the 4 sockets I need to make Spirit from the Act 5 smith as my reward for settling the score with Shank the Overseer earlier in Act 5. I've talked about Spirit many times. I even gave it its own ranking when I did tier lists of all the rune words, cause it's just that good. Just ignore all the bad melee mods and pretend you are playing a good character instead. Plus 2 skills, 30 faster cast rate, 55 faster hit recovery, 22 vitality, 99 mana and 4 magic absorb for the price of a few runes at level 25 is insane. There is just no other word for it. This rune word is ridiculous. The funniest part is that this is a very mediocre role. It can get more faster cast rate and mana, and it still easily outclasses every single thing I could have access to at this point of the game by miles. The sword being a one-handed weapon allows me to wear a shield as well. My choices are between Ancient's Pledge and Rhyme. While the Old People Pledge has more resistances, I want to just keep compounding the magic find and decide to go for the Rhyme thanks to its 25% magic find. Firewall is actually way too strong for how early I am using it in the game. The damage it deals even at low levels is amazing, but I just don't have enough resets to keep it for later. So it gets to incinerate Coldworm the Burrower before I teleport up the stairs and laugh at Fangskin for not being able to get up to his own Tainted Sun altar. To add even more injury to insult, I decide to burn him from up top as well, feeling all high and mighty color while bleaching his life total to 0 with fire. I wasn't kidding when I said that Firewall is actually way too strong for this part of the game. All I have to do in the Duriel fight is to make sure he stands still while I cast wall after wall, which ends up evaporating his life total in a matter of seconds. He drops a unique barbed club, the second criminally underrated melee weapon. This looks like a druid weapon with its +2 to shape-shifting skills and 1 to all druid skills. But the list of stats on this thing is a melee character's wet dream. 140% enhanced damage, 35 to 50 flat damage, 20% chance of crushing blow, 20% deadly strike, 25% chance of open wounds, prevent monster heal, and it's all topped off with a solid 50% racism to the undead, cause they aren't humans and deserve it. At this point I realized I hadn't cleared out the Den of Evil yet, so I quickly do that, picking up an ethereal 4-socket halberd along the way. Corpse Fire drops a rare Demon Hide Sash as well. 27 life, 15 lightning resist and 29 fire resist. That is a belt that will easily get me through hell, so don't mind if I do. With the den cleared, I decide to fire Boars and hire Hazard before resetting my skill points yet again. The time has come for the other side of the fire skill tree, so I put some points into Hydra, the Fire Mastery, Meteor, Fireball and Firebolt. Deciding that I deserve to live everyone's fantasy, I decide to drop a Meteor on everything in Act 3, which nets me the Jade figurine in the Spider Forest as my just reward. While Meteor is a very old school feeling skill, it does have its problems. The casting delay on it is pretty big, meaning that you can only cast one every few seconds. In between those seconds, you are just kinda screwed. Case in point, these fetish decide to be the first things ever to just walk around the fire and kill me before the next meteor even comes down. Sazark manages to take down Hazard in the Spider Cavern, but luckily I manage to clutch it out and land the meteor to avenge my fallen friend. In the Flayer jungle, I once again go and get the bin. This time however, I can understand why Ormus decided to give this ring away. It's a piece of crap and he should feel bad for giving it to me. Killing things from across a body of water just never gets old. So while Stormtree wanders around aimlessly while forgetting how bridges work, I just throw some meteors at his head to see if it helps him remember. It doesn't, and I move on to Travancal, where the council apparently concluded that their best course of action is to do absolutely nothing and face tank my meteors. Which, well, works for me, I suppose. You'd think the other half of them would be smarter after seeing what happened to their friends, but no, they also just stood still and died. A few months ago I claimed in a video that you can't mode trick Mephisto anymore when using a controller. I promptly got told by about 1,000 people that it is absolutely possible and I should just get good. So I did, and here is me mode tricking Mephisto. I still end up screwing it up a bunch because I'm just so used to standing right next to him. But yeah, definitely possible. My bad. Hope this correction is enough for everyone. Towards the end of the fight I got bored of doing it this way, so I teleported over anyway to have some quality time with my old friend, before he had to leave to get to his other appointments. At first I wanted to use Firebolt in Act 4 of Nightmare, but as you can see, it was rough and I was barely able to kill a single enemy. I knew from just this alone that I was not going to be able to clear an act with this skill because at skill level 11 the damage was just too low. To solve this problem I decided to reset the act and go with Hydra instead, sacrificing an ability I would have loved to use later in the game. But you've gotta do what you've gotta do. While the Hydras weren't nearly as strong as I'm used to, since I've only put in half the skill points I normally do, they were still making their way through the act in a reasonable manner, allowing me to finish off Isual over the course of a few minutes and near deaths. To deal with Hephaestus, I teleported to the other side of the Hydras. He was trying to break on through to the other side, but ended up falling short. The Hellforge nets me a Lom rune, allowing me to make the smoke rune word. I don't even remember what the rest of this rune word does. All my eyes tunnel vision on is the 50% resist all, cause it's just so much. I knew before I entered that there would be fire immunes in the Chaos Sanctuary. However, what I did not realize was just how many there would be. It is just an endless collection of them. So instead of dealing with my problems, I decide to leave the Chaos Sanctuary and go level up instead. No matter what is going on, there is always one simple solution. Sad? Broke? Mephisto runs. Lost all hope in humanity? Mephisto runs. Your partner left you cause you did too many Mephisto runs. Mephisto runs. Can't beat the Chaos Sanctuary? Mephisto runs. Nightmare farming is always a great way to get some Saigon pieces that will pump up the jam on low level characters. The Rune Sword is the best rabies weapon in the game thanks to its +5 to the skill. I won't go into it more though, cause that is for the Druid episode of this series. I got a small improvement to my chance cards as well, upgrading them from 27 to 30 magic find. I know it's not much, but it's the little things you tend to enjoy the most. With some more items found, I figured it would be good to go do the actual leveling I mentioned I would do. For this, I decided to head towards the tower. Here, I'll be able to kill 2 stones with 1 bird again. I'll get the levels I want and I can pick up some items and runes along the way, like this Saigon's helm. And these Am runes that I used to make a soul to finish up my mercenaries inside. The roll on the meditation aura was bad. It goes all the way up to level 17, but it's still a big stick that grants me a ton of mana. And some more magic find for Hazard never hurts either. With his big damage upgrade, he had no problems clearing out the Chaos Sanctuary and we made it to the Diablo fight. This guy, or girl, depending on what game in the series you are playing, has the whole thing named after him. It's not Duriel 1-4, it's Diablo 1-4. So just how hard is this boss in Nightmare? Well, not at all, as long as you stand close enough to be able to sniff check his underwear to see if it's still clean enough. His lightning can't hit you and it's the easiest thing in the world to deal with him. You do have to move away from the fire, and sometimes he decides that he is suddenly a prodigy of hand-to-hand combat and goes to try and smack a bitch up, which turns out to be to no avail, as the Hydras have no problem finishing the job. With the 4th piece of Saigons added to my collection, it is time to head into Act 5. Because this is the final point before hell, I decided to use Fireball, which is once again quite aptly named and is a literal ball of fire that explodes on hit. This skill is very strong. People use this in their endgame builds all the time, so I don't quite have a lot to talk about for this act. I just teleported straight to the Ancients, who reminded me that I'm not quite as strong as I'm used to, with my skills being divided all over the place. 3 ancient barbarians are not very subtle people, so they just killed me and hoped I got the message, which I did. I need to grind some more levels. Which can mean only one thing. It is time for some Eldritch grinding. I picked up a 4-socket Akaran Targe with 15 resist all and 4 sockets while I was there. Following that, there was a sharp Grand Charm of Life. With 10 max, 73 attack rating and 8 life, this charm is going straight into the inventory of every melee build for the rest of the run. To help out Hazard a bit, I decided that he would get a hearth for its extra life, cold, resist and cannot be frozen. The Eldritch experience gain slows down after a while, so for the sake of better experience and to protect my sanity from boredom, I decided to save Anya from her own cold shoulder again. This time it wasn't so much for the resistance scroll. The smoke armor has that part covered no problem, but saving her also unlocks Pindleskin, which is one of the best experience farms in the game. I think farming Pindleskin in normal and Nightmare is slept on by a lot of people, as long as you can make sure that you can survive him on players 8. He hits like a truck, so be careful of that. The experience in here is amazing. You can easily do a level every couple of minutes until you hit level 60. He ends up dropping me a big upgrade to my chance guards. I know some people will never forgive me, but I'm not passing up Tri-Res gloves with 24 magic find ever. It's a 6 magic find downgrade to net me 42 resistances, easiest trade of my life. I did a few more runs and ended up at level 60. As you can see, my stats are just the most basic of spreads with the old-fashioned stats for gear. The rest into vitality. This is what most of your Diablo 2 builds will look like, and this one is no different. Having made my way back to the Ancients, I come to the realization that being an appropriate level makes the game way easier. The extra power gained from the grind allows me to defeat the Ancients with serious gumption. The Throne of Destruction went much smoother this time around. The only thing I had to do was lure out the minions of destruction because they had the fanaticism aura, which makes them attack harder and faster. They also have a very high natural fire resist, with all of them spawning fire immune in hell. Despite all that, I might have been able to take them on, but I just didn't want to risk it. The Bale fight involved a lot of throwing fireballs and not so much else. He once again just didn't really fight back. I might have beaten him so many times that he has just given up. I don't know for sure, but whatever the case, he is once again dead, dropping the most racist to undead gloves in the game in the form of ghoul hide. These heavy braces sport a whopping 122% damage to undead, with an even bigger attack rating bonus to them. They are intended for melee characters though, so in the stash they go. Speaking about melee items, while dealing with Shank for the quest, a pair of unique light-plated boots drops to the floor. These are Goblin Toes, one of the few pairs of boots that has the Crushing Blow mod on them, instantly making them fantastic despite having nothing else going on at all. I'm not even joking when I say that people take these all the way to the Ubers just because of the Crushing Blow. I was busy getting some more levels in the ancient tunnels in my preparation for hell when a unique totemic mask dropped. This is Jalal's main, the de facto druid helm. Few items are as iconic and just plainly stylish and awesome as this one. Plus 2 to shapeshifting skills, 2 to druid skills, hit recovery, 20% attack rating, strength, resistances and mana after each kill. I didn't have an exact order yet in which I wanted to do these episodes when I started recording them, but if the game tells me this hard that I should go druid next, I am going druid next. Message received loud and clear. The level grind continues and the MF cascade is going in full force now, starting off with some Saigon gauntlets, putting me at only one piece missing for completing the whole thing. Another thing I picked up along the way is the unique battle dart. This is Deathbit. I've always really wanted to like this weapon for its replenish quantity, dual leech, attack rating and damage. But even with the 40% deadly strike, which means that 40% of the time this weapon deals double damage, it is still just not even throwing a dent into a pack of butter. I don't know why though, but I just really want to love this item despite it disappointing me every single time. It goes straight in the stash though. I'll need some throwing weapons later on. The next big drop is a unique Grand Charm. I'm in Nightmare, so this has to be a Geed's Fortune. This charm rolls from 25 to 40 magic find and a 10 to 15% discount on the vendor prices. So at 13 the discount is alright, but the 27% magic find is a very low roll. No worries though, I'm finding a better one later on in the run. At this point I've grinded enough, so I uninstalled the app and headed into hell. While Firebolt caused me to have to redo Act 4 in Nightmare, I can't get around it anymore. I've used all the other good fire skills. Thanks to the grinding, I've managed to max it out in the hope of giving it a bit more damage. But even at max level, it's only dealing 827 to 1066, which isn't even half of what Fireball was doing. Act 1 can be done pretty quickly though. I want the rare ring, so I teleport over and try to grab the Scroll of Inifus again. I tried fighting the hairy beast for a moment, but when I saw how much damage I was dealing, I figured today was a good day to teleport around and ignore all of it. One thing I could never ignore is just how much of a mess it was to open up Tristram. Half of the monsters around the entrance are fire immune, the other half barely gets tickled by my firebolts, with me having to teleport away from Rakanishu to save my life. It is the unfortunate truth, but it has to be said. I encountered the little blue goblin 3 times and only managed to beat him once. A sad day for everyone involved. And you know what the worst part was after all of that? The ring I got was atrocious. Made me just want to string Kane back up without the cage to teach everyone involved a lesson. But I am a man of solid judgment, so I let Kane stir in his oncoming lepidopterophobia instead and just moved on with my life. My next goal was to farm some more runes. I don't need anything in specific, but just having access to a bunch of runes just gives you so many more options later on. This plan collapsed when I got down to level 5 and was reminded that the Countess is fire immune. Whoopsie. The reason I wanted to do the fire skills before getting too deep into hell shows itself in the Catacombs level 4. Everything in here is fire immune except for Andariel. I don't know why, but for some reason the developers of the game thought it would be balanced to make like half the game immune to fire in hell. And I figured it would be smart to not run into all of that nonsense with fire, but to just plan around it instead. Andariel used to be very weak to fire. She still is, but she used to as well, which means that even with Firebolt's bad damage, I end up able to take her down. Corpse Fire ends up being the one that finally breaks my stroke of bad rings. It's not the best ring on the planet or anything, but this one is at least trying to look good with its resist all, a bit of extra fire resist, life leech and attack rating. Don't get me wrong, there is room for improvement for sure, but this at least isn't a complete dumpster fire of a ring. For my final build I am going 156 strength. This will allow me to wear a monarch shield if I find one. The rest of my stats all go into vitality again. Skill wise there is only one tree left to work with, the cold skill tree, so I put my points into Ice Bolt, Ice Blast, Glacial Spike, Blizzard, the Ice Mastery, and of course there is one going into Teleport. Starting with Act 2, I decide to go for Glacial Spike. This very familiar feeling little blue ball isn't the most damaging thing on the planet, but it has one big upside that makes Act 2 a great place to use it. It shatters enemies, which means they can't be revived, allowing you to ignore the skeletons getting revived by the Unravelers even if you weren't just teleporting past them. Radamant is one of those bosses in the game that is way easier when no one is reviving summons, and it turns into a one-on-one fight. Fangskin however is cold immune, so there is nothing I can do to him except laugh from on top of the stairs as I rob his most sacred item. Shout out to my boy Teleport for making it all possible. If it makes anyone feel better, I can lie and say that the maggot lair was hard fought, like I didn't just press and hold the teleport button. It took me 2 tries to pick up the staff named after my private parts, but it's not like it was suddenly a challenge or anything. To do some more prep for future characters I decided to craft some gloves. They turned out quite decent with 10% crushing blow, some life leech, life and poison resist. During the character rebuild I put 156 points into strength for if I found a monarch. I don't really want to let it up to coincidence though, especially considering I'm very near to one of the best item farming areas in the entire game, the ancient tunnels. The monsters in this area can drop any item in the game and they start off with a cute little rare ring that is a small upgrade but good to have in case I have a character lacking in attack rating and fire resist at some point. Next up they drop an insane helmet, 5% life leech with a pile of resistances. This is going to hazard for now, but you better bet your butt that all my melee characters are going to love this helm. The following find is an Ochre small charm of sustenance. This nets me 15 life and 6 lightning resist. Charms like these are amazing and I'm still happy to find them every single time. I ended up going all the way to level 76 in the ancient tunnels, at which point all of my skills were just maxed, and while I could just keep grinding for the monarch, I decided not to. In hindsight I was very happy about my decision, because while it would have been better to get it and get my spirit shield going. This whole thing ended up taking over 110 hours of recording, which was plenty long enough for me. In the Duriel fight, Hazard did a lot of tanking, while I did a lot of teleporting to stay out of the angry bug's reach. This strategy has been working the entire game and did just fine against Duriel as well. The damage on Glacial Spike wasn't very high, so it took a bit, but there was never any real danger. The Gothic shield he dropped can be amazing if it gets a high roll. It can get up to 50% resist all. However, this one rolled 39, which makes it worse than my other options like Ancient's Pledge. With just a few acts and a few skills left, the path through the final acts is starting to become very clear. So for Act 3 I am going with Ice Blast, which is just Glacial Spike's smaller sibling. The Act 3 jungle I give exactly the treatment it deserves by slowly and surely making my way through it without skipping any content at all. I would never. I do make sure to squash Sazark though, not really for any reason, cause I could easily just skip him as well. But I could and I wanted to, you know. Mephisto's act is known for being filled to the brim with lightning immunes, but people always forget just how many cold immunes are in here as well. Every single Flayer just has no chill. Well, except for Ash Crow the Hunter, who has no immunities despite being the guardian of the Git bin. No good deed goes unpunished, as the reward was once again not worth it at all. I think Ormus just saw how many rare rings I found and figured I could afford to get myself something nice instead of him giving me the goods. No clue why, but the Jade figurine has taken forever to drop in all 3 difficulties. Here in Hell it ended up dropping all the way in the Flayer dungeon courtesy of the Witch Doctor. The rest of the act was just business as usual. A near death in the ruined temple while trying to pick up the tome. Lots of clearing every single piece of content in the sewers. Tag teaming one of the council members for the flail. And ending up in some weird Durance type thing that I decided to spend as little time as possible. Mephisto himself was a bit of a roadblock, but at this point I'm basically a decked out sorceress. So while the life totals went low on both sides, I came out victorious. Mr. Fisto was in the Christmas spirit early and decided to give me 3 set items, 2 uniques and 1 high rune. Just imagine the 12 days of Christmas tune beneath that, cause I'm sure as shit not singing it. If there was ever an item that would get you ramping up the magic find, it is the Blade of Alibaba with its 1 magic find per level. The cascade just keeps on going and I'm so happy. It is on one of the biggest runs I've ever done. I have 2 acts left with the sorceress and I've skilled into 2 more skills. So do I use the crazy powerful spell for the 10-minute act or do I use the sad level 1 skill with barely any damage? Yeah, I'm using Ice Bolt for act 4. Cause even at level 20 with a bunch of synergies put in, it's still only dealing 470 to 600 damage. The 37 second slow duration is insane though, that is so crazy long. A tradition that is starting to take form in this run is that the usual fight takes forever. But dear game, I know you're all about doing the right thing, but this really doesn't have to be a tradition. I would be perfectly fine with just wrecking him in 2 seconds. Despite the damage of Ice Bolt being very disappointing. The River of Flame has enough small little corners where Hazard can tank and I can shoot at everything that moves in safety, allowing me to make my way through and reach the Hellforge. Before I can get my reward, I need to deal with Hepasto, but the strategy of just teleporting around and taking pot shots turns out to be a winning strategy once again. The monsters in the game just can't deal with you moving around so fast. Well, that is if you do it correctly. The Hellforge gets me another Lum rune, which is okay I suppose, but I don't really need it. Things in the Sanctuary of Chaos went much smoother than I had ever expected them to go. Hazard was having no problems dealing with the Oblivion Knights that are immune to cold, and despite the low damage, the rest of the monsters was being cleared out at a much nicer pace than I would have guessed when I started this act. I'm not gonna claim this skill is the best thing on the planet or anything, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be at all. One of the most important drops of the entire run happens here as well in the form of a unique Great Maul. This is the Steel Driver, one of the best unique weapons in the entire game. This thing is half lower requirements, half pain for anything standing in between you and where you want to go. At level 29, this thing is sporting 40% increased attack speed, 234 enhanced damage, getting it up to 126 as its minimum and 193 at its top, which is just phenomenal. If you're approaching the game with the attitude of, if you've got a pulse, we've got a problem, Steel Driver is your solution. It also slots in nicely with the rest of the racist gear, sporting the ever ubiquitous 50% racism to the undead just to fit in with the boys. In one of my latest live streams, my chat blew my mind by telling me that Lord Deceased is just a play on words with the name Lord Deceased. I don't know how I managed to not pick up on that in 25 years, but if nothing else I can make sure the knowledge gets out there. After all, like Mr. Bacon said, knowledge is power. I also thought it was hilarious that when I googled the quote to check my sources, ChatGPT called him Sir Francis Bacon. This information adds nothing to the story, but it made me laugh, so here you go. Meanwhile, back at the plot, me and Hazard have cornered Lord Deceased and are making sure his name fits his stature. One final shitting on the Infector of Souls later, the Sanctuary has been cleared and it is time to pretend that the Diablo fight will be hard. Just like in Nightmare though, this fight is just free cause the developers messed up the range of his lightning attack. If you stand anywhere between him and the moon, it just flies over you. Neat little party trick to show off when people don't know it. Terrifying the first time you do it yourself. Free every single other time after that. The set amulet he dropped was a Tancred's, which combines with any other set piece to give you 78% magic find, so I should pick up the next one of those. With that, we have reached the final act of the first of the 7, and I thought it would be fitting to end on a high note with Blizzard. We all know this skill and we all love this skill. The only downside is that you have maybe played it so much that you are just bored of it. But you'll still start the next ladder season with a hearty sigh as you build another one just to make sure you too can grab that loot. I don't know what to tell you here that hasn't all been said before a million times before by people far less eloquent and humble than me. Blizzard just does it all. It slices, it dices, it does your homework for you, it picks up the slack when you're not feeling like playing well. How could it not? They named the entire company after this, it couldn't be bad. On screen you see me zooming through the act. Every single area is just a mere annoyance to the mighty sorceress. Doesn't matter how high up in the mountains we go, or how deep we head into the frozen rivers. Everything can be ignored and everything else can be looted. I did have a reason for doing things this way though. I want to spend the final time on the sorceress prepping for the next runs by doing some farming, which starts off with me finding a ward bow from good old Pindleskin. The Widowmaker fires magic arrows and gives +5 to guided arrow, just keep that in mind for now, it will become relevant in due time. Only one other thing ended up being relevant during this little farming session. I decided to imbue a circlet, and it ended up having +2 martial arts and some resistances. There are teleport charges on there as well. Don't worry, I see them. But I don't use teleport charges in normal runs. They make the game way too linear for my taste, so I won't be using those. The rest of the helm is still very worth it though. The final hurdle are the ancients. One of them will always spawn cold immune, so Hazard will have to pull his weight in the fight. When you use a town portal during the fight with the ancients, it resets them and restarts the fight. I used this a few times to ensure there being only one cold immune ancient. This doesn't mean the fight is now solved. I still have to make sure that I split up the ancients and have Hazard survive a battle against a cursed Madark. Not an easy feat at all. I'm talking about Hazard like he could be the problem, but I didn't even realize at first that if I'm not careful, Madark will just as easily two-shot me as well. He certainly is no misogynist. Those axes are rated E for everyone. A hard fought battle later I realize I am already out of healing potions. I brought some extra full rejuvenation ones, but things are going to be tight. I get lucky and manage to isolate Korlik without a problem. He is the one that is cold immune, meaning that it's Hazard's time to shine. And just looking at the fight, my body fills with pride. Not only is Hazard doing well, he is kicking Korlik's ass no problem. I was dreading it a bit, but my man pulled through. I know I complain about mercenaries a lot, but credit where credit is due. That was a great performance. Talik can't deal with the teleport around and deal damage strategy, so now he is just somebody that I used to know. It bears repeating that the minions of destruction are fire immune in hell. This time around though I am dealing cold damage, so there were no problems. They just melted in a matter of seconds. Gee, I'm wondering if you can kill Bale with a blizzard sorceress. Said no one ever. We all know the answer to that question. I didn't even bother despawning the clown. I mean clone. So there you have it. We have completed the first of the 7 by using a different skill for every boss. In the next episode we are going to go with the druid. But for now I want to give a big thank you to the channel members, the Patreons, and of course you, the viewer. Thank you for watching and I will see you all in the next one.